You got to get on an
for
airplane.
work.
You going to Miami?
Oh, must be nice.
Back tomorrow. Same.
Yeah, but at least you're just going to that airplane. You don't have to drive.
Yeah, if you had to drive to Miami and you weren't in a Formula One car, how long would it take you? Go.
24 hours.
Wrong. Okay, welcome to the Formula One podcast. that failed. Really. Welcome to the Grid Culture podcast, where we talk about Formula One and Formula One fantasy using Grid Rival. We're back today to talk about the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, or Imola, however the fuck you want to do it. It doesn't matter to me. Respect. They got like 100 names. What's the new name? But anyways, let's run it. It's crazy long.
The full name is crazy long.
It's insanity. Anyways, well, welcome, everybody. What'd you think, Imola? It was a boring fucking race, except for the end. You know, there was some fun stuff in the end, but overall,
I'm really glad I didn't sacrifice my 3 hours of extra sleep that I got for that race.
Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, it was a very.
I woke up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
because you guys were texting a lot. And then sat back down
What a debate.
and fell asleep.
Because
And then woke up at 9 a.m. Pacific time and said, it's time to watch the race, and looked at your text messages and could tell that Lando got close, but he didn't win.
Yeah, it was just like, go Lando, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, I woke up like 15 minutes after the race had started, so I was kind of like on a 15-20 minute delay. And normally, like when something crazy is happening in our like little text chain, it'll just be blowing up like right from, because normally at least something happens on lap one, you know, going into turn one, something's somewhat exciting. And I was 20 minutes behind, and the text thread was dead. And then I was like, I don't know, all the way up to lap like 35, and the text chain was still dead. And I was like, like, is this race just gonna stay this boring? And then you guys got me excited because you said, oh, wait a second. And I just saw that some text started coming through, and I stopped reading them because just feel that there was text. And I was like, oh, shit.
You were asking for sadness
cooking.
even reading
And
those
then
text messages.
We didn't.
Yeah, to be honest.
I could just tell, like, my phone will just be buzzing, and I'd be like, oh, shit.
Wow, I got on there,
like,
and I was like, I'm surprised no one is saying anything. So I was like, hey, is anyone watching? And then there was a couple people liking, and I was like, what about this Lando thing? You know? But yeah, nothing. No serious penalties. Yeah. I mean, we did get was it Yuki got a penalty for unsafe release?
It was Albon.
Albon. Yeah, and he just got totally wrecked, and then just retired.
Kick a man while he's down. Hey, you had a pit that ended your race, and we're still gonna penalize you for it.
Yeah, he was a lap behind, a full lap.
Because they put on 3.5 of the wheels, which is almost 4, but not quite. And then, like, he hobbled around, lost a lap, whatever. And it sounded like the commentator was like, oh, yeah, they're going to get a fine for that. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Whatever. That's an unsafe release. And they're like, no, 10-second time penalty. I was like, Jesus Christ,
I feel like when you get penalties
like,
when your race is already gone, like, what's the point? I guess other than for record purposes, I guess.
I mean, they did it to Magnussen.
Yeah.
I mean, Magnussen played it super smooth. Like, even I don't know if you guys saw towards the end, when Max lapped him, they were like, oh, there they are. He's going to get over. And without hesitation, Magnussen was just over. And I think it was like Logan right in front of him. Logan kept going a little bit and didn't want to like let him through immediately. But you could tell Magnussen was just like, yep, sure, whatever you need.
Yeah, it's just on his...
Yeah. He stayed behind Logan for quite a while, because I was like, like he got kind of trapped after that pit window, whatever, because they got the new tires there. Everyone was coming through, and then there was like a pause, and then it was Magnussen behind Logan, and I was like, I bet he's playing it a little bit closer. Like it's like you got Logan, who's not the best driver, and then you have Kevin Magnussen, who's a genuine crazy person. Like it's like this could be carnage. I was low-key open for a safety car. I was like, these two knuckleheads, they could make this more interesting. And then they didn't. They played it
I wanted more,
very chill,
especially a safety car. But yeah, we weren't getting a lot of that. I mean, I was hoping for, when I was watching, I saw Magnussen was doing well. He was like 8th, and he was doing really well. And I had Hulkenberg starred, so he was like 11th, and I was like, okay. And then they pitted Magnussen, and I was like, okay, he moved up. But Hulkenberg could not keep that 10th spot as hard as he tried, because even I think it was Perez pitted, came in after him, and then pushed people around him, and it kind of like ruined his positioning.
I think that was a super interesting thing, because like everybody just did the same pit strategy and just cycled, and then for a while it looked like, what is Perez and Stroll and Magnussen, what are they doing? Like, this seems so stupid. Why are they out for so long? And then it turns out you're like, oh no, that was a way better strategy, because they just used the shit out of those tires and funneled right back up through the field. So like, if you were like V-Carb, for instance, right? Like Daniel and Yuki, when after they had both pitted, they were 2 seconds away from each other on track. They were essentially in the same exact window. It's like kind of weird that they didn't try to stagger that at all. To like, Haas essentially got to play both strategies, and almost got it. Like, you could have had Daniel come up through if they would have waited and like tried to split the strategies between the cars, especially when you're fighting in the midfield like that. I thought that was a little interesting. Like that. It looked like it was a total blunder by Red Bull and Aston.
When
and like, oh, actually, no, that's
Stroll and Magnussen were still on track, and it was like Magnussen 8th and Stroll 9th or something like that, right? They were in the back of the top half of the pack, and Hulkenberg was just coming through, and you see Magnussen with, I think, Tsunoda maybe, or I can't remember who it was, but I just remember seeing Magnussen up and Nico coming back. I was like, all right, here you go, Magnussen. Team game again. Slow it down. Let Nico take that spot. And just immediately my mind went to Magnussen, do your job. And that was horrible. It was horrible. But I'm surprised they didn't, because he hadn't pitted. He was on that offset strategy, and honestly, Nico could have used it. And then you saw Tsunoda just hunt Nico down, and then immediately they dropped off. It was like 2 seconds after one lap, which is pretty crazy, the pace differential from V-Carb to Haas and Nico.
But they kept it pretty close. I mean, honestly, right? I mean, it was Yuki at the end of the race, right? It was Yuki, then Hulk, then Magnussen, then Ricciardo. Like it was like a little fucking sandwich, and there was like 2 seconds, a second and a half between each of them. Like, they filtered out of the dirty air, but like their pace wise, I mean, I think it was really about track position between those two teams this weekend, which is a little surprising to see that Haas.
I thought it was interesting that the hard tires were doing so well, and they got up to like speed quickly too, because it felt like George, when they went for fastest lap, they put them on, and he still had time where his pit didn't even really matter, and they put him on, and I think it was maybe 2 laps into that, and he already had fastest lap with the new tire change. Like, what, it was like 6 laps till the end of the race, and I was like, wow, those, like, with the heat of it, the hard tires were really outperforming this week comparatively, where last race in Miami we were only seeing mediums do well. But it's a little hotter, different temperatures. I don't know exactly what's Italy is like.
Yeah, I think there's a step in the other direction on the range. So I think that the hard is, I think,
Pirelli went softer this
last weekend. So I think
Pirelli went softer this week.
We're a step softer.
Interesting.
But honestly, I thought that was. I mean, there was like essentially there was 3 groups, right? There was like the top, but then there was like a 25-second gap between George and Hamilton to like Yuki, and then it was that V-Carb Haas sandwich, and then there was a time gap between them to all the cars behind. Like there was literally like just, it was like that. There was like the top of the field, the midfield, and the back of the field, like all pretty well segmented.
It was interesting.
Makes it interesting for like that last week came up in a big bunch of conversations about points. How far should points go down? Because the FIA got lobbied to have points till 12th, and like today's race, if there was points till 12, would have been even more competitive. Like, because once they realized that Yuki had that 10th spot, everyone just kind of was like held position. But like, if you were still fighting for points in there, I think that little section of the, the track.
Yeah, I think that helps. I think that is a good proposal. I don't know as much as they're going to say. I know the FIA hates changing rules like that, but it seems more likely than some other things, where they would make that a little bit more competitive. So how did everyone do this week on their grid rival picks? Let's check out the race report here. What do we think? Yeah, I was just waiting.
It's trash. It was terrible. It was terrible from the beginning. It was going to be bad going in. I had a slot open because I ran out of contract time on Botas last week, who was doing hot doggy dog shit, and so I had no money, so I had to fill it with the only fucking person I could afford, which was Logan Sargent. So I had Logan Sargent and Williams, which was terrible. And then Fernando Alonso, which is usually a safe bet, did terrible. And then I had Max and Oscar, which looked good, but then Oscar fell back because of his penalty, so then that kind of fucked me again. So yeah.
What about you, Tyler?
For me, I was the least efficient points wise. I had a good amount of money, and I held most of my money. I mean, I basically, I think I only lost 0.2 million. Which sucks because it means I didn't gain anything. Actually, yeah, I'm one of the 4 people who lost money, who didn't gain money this week. Because I think my picks were all around. But I mean, Albon screwed me over, but luckily the top 3 right now, top 4, all of us had Albon in some capacity, so that was fine. I had 5 one-week contracts this week, and Stroll expiring, so I basically. The only person who's persisting for me next week is Hulkenberg. Everyone else is gone, so it's a whole new team again next week on purpose, because this was kind of my off week where my previous long-term contract strategy expired, and now I'm on to the next.
Interesting. What about you, Cody? Plat?
Let's see. I did decent this week. I honestly just let it ride. I did not make any changes to my lineup. I really didn't know how this race was going to go. I didn't do terrible. I mean, obviously I starred Nico Hulkenberg, which I just let ride from last week. I think I might have picked up Bottas, but that's all I could really afford with the George Russell pickup. And then
George Russell's not a bad pickup.
Yeah, I wanted to change it up and really try to experiment, because I think the lock I had last week really screwed me, which I think was Norris. And then the only thing I lose this week is Haas. So I lose my constructor this week. Everything else I'll ride into.
How much are they worth? They're worth 12.9 right now. What's that other team?
And then money wise, I picked up 2.2, which I think was the 3rd highest for the league.
Yeah, you could sell a break a contract and get Alpine to shoot up, or you can go down to Sauber. And just not be using all your money.
Actually, I think I didn't score the second because I'm seeing this 2.9. But Lobo, how was yours?
Mine, honestly, for riding, because I did the same. I just kept the same lineup. I did well. I did second best in the racing lineup, so I was pretty happy about that. I had Piastri and Norris, and I knew that was a gamble. to keep 2 McLarens because you don't get a lot of points per each of them if they're not doing better than the other. Only one's going to get that majority of points, but Piastri's been fairly solid regardless. He does really well in the top 5. So, and then I started Hulkenberg over Daniel this week because I thought he was going to do better, which he ended up doing better. But I also had Stroll, and Stroll did way better.
Yeah, Stroll would have been the player.
Well, not way better, but I would have had 270 points versus 236. But overall, it was actually a good weekend for me because I had dropped from last week. I dropped from I think I was at 6th and I dropped to 12th, and I went back up to 2 places to 8th. So I'm fairly happy. I still have all my lineup next week, but I think I'm gonna drop Aston. I'm gonna pay the early buyout and drop Aston Martin and see what else I can get.
It's crazy how much money you would have come up on if you hadn't lost almost 2 mil on Aston.
Yeah,
because you even just Lance Stroll and Oscar, you gained 4.
I had Piastri last week.
I'd be tempted
and he lost 1.8.
Yeah,
and I'm so pissed that he dropped because now this week he's back to where he what I bought him at.
Like, even if you had Haas, you would have gone up another mil.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I know. I was looking at your Haas. I was like, oh my god, I should have picked them up. They were cheaper than Aston.
Yep.
So let's check out the race report. I know we kind of looked at it a little bit, and it's honestly pretty interesting to see. It looks like our number 1 is Tyler's wife, the Wolf Pack.
She's hunting him down.
She's killing it. She's coming for you.
She over there looking at your screen when you're making pics, or are you looking at her?
She on purpose does not look at. We do not talk about it. She was not happy with her Aston Martin pickup. She was upset about that, but the rest of her team did really well. I mean, honestly, if you had the mid pack, if you had Tsunoda, Stroll, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg this week, those are the slam dunks.
Oh yeah,
they were efficient.
Oh yeah,
I mean, look at that.
Wow.
I mean, even Ricciardo was good for his money this week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So So the only thing we had to common that really messed us over, where she only beat me by, I think it's only 7 points that she beat me by, but it's that Aston Martin that was the game changer for all of it. That's
I
funny.
mean, she didn't have Piastri, and she has.
But she has Sainz.
Yeah, and she has Tsunoda, not Hulkenberg.
Interesting. That's an awesome pick. Yeah,
she's double V carved out.
Yeah,
I think the only thing that let her down was the Aston Martin pick. But honestly, the Aston Martin pick was probably going to let her down. But it was just surprising that it was
exactly
Alonso. And not
Stroll. Normally we're just like, you kind of. I was worried about Stroll. I was like, he has been just a mess in these last ones, and I was like, I'm gonna keep him because I kind of think that he can't do this again. Like if he screws up one more time, he's getting the belt. Like Papa Lawrence does not take that.
What did Toto Baggins have?
Let's see. Oh yeah, he only got one less than me.
Oh, and he would have done that McLaren constructors. But if he had anybody but Albon, he probably would have been fine.
Wow.
Yeah, he would have taken it this week.
He had
So, yeah, he really would have. So he had Hulkenberg, Sard, Tsunoda was great, Sainz, Piastri. Yeah, that Albon, that was it. But still, amazing lineup.
That's interesting. He went Hulkenberg star over Yuki.
That is interesting because I didn't have Yuki, and I would have starred Yuki because this is his track.
He was just so fast. I thought it was super interesting. I mean, he was so quick through all the practices, and he looked good in quality too. But then when you came down to I know there's lots of conversations about V-Carb and seats and Ricciardo and Yuki and everything, right? But when it all kind of shook out, you're like, they're all within spitting distance, right? I mean, that whole chunk of the grid was super, super tight, super close.
Exactly.
I think
so let's look at Wendy's surge prices.
I was gonna say
I want to see how well they did, how they got 4 million.
I think he's the only other thing to take out of this is looking at his lineup to see why he made so much money.
Yeah. Is that
Ricardo, Verstappen, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Haas.
Yep.
Wow, he's got a
And so
triple Haas.
if he'd even dropped Carlos and had something else, he would have made even more money. Because if he had had like
Wow.
Stroll instead of Carlos,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have.
I mean, he could have if he had Oscar instead of
Yeah, but
Sainz,
points wise,
you know, I think they're about the same price.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because that's the funny thing about Sainz, right? Is like he lost a little bit of money,
Yeah.
but he still fucking scored
Yeah.
142 points, right? So like, and points are what?
Yeah,
Um,
Oscar
that
going
is
into the race was only 19
So that's
million,
interesting.
and I wish I would have had him. And Sainz was 25.9.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, the Ferraris
Yeah.
let us down. I was riding the hype
Yeah.
train. Why I picked up the Ferrari, the constructor,
Yeah.
was because I was expecting them to do something. Because I couldn't have Leclerc and Sainz. I could have afforded them. I was just locked out from Leclerc.
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue into.
Leclerc did 155 into this time. Yeah, and exactly. That is an amazing segue into literally
the rate
why.
upgrades.
Yeah, we're seeing all these jump ups, this almost leveling the playing field in so many ways. This season. Do we have any first impressions on upgrades on who we think was the actual star this week?
I can tell you it wasn't. It was not Ferrari. I think McLaren had already showed their upgrades, but now Piastri's up to speed, and I think that showed. I think without the penalty, Oscar would have killed it this weekend.
Right.
And then obviously strategy really hurt him as well. But I think McLaren's upgrades for what they are, I think they've really leveled the playing field. And I think Ferrari was overhyped. I don't know if they've got bigger upgrades planned that like those for them doing so many upgrades, I really feel like they were overhyped and not worth it.
Yeah.
I wonder also too if it's like they rolled out so many upgrades at once. Like even McLaren, right? Like Lando's car was a full, similar level of lots of upgrades, but then Piastri's was half, and then they were kind of sorting out, and it took them some weekends to get it online. Like Ferrari brought almost a full new car this weekend, and I'd be curious to see, like, just to get that correlation right and to get the setups right with how different that new car is. Like, is it going to take some time? Like, are those upgrades good? It seems like it didn't lose any pace, certainly.
I did not look it up.
Forward,
does anyone know who got all the upgrades?
Yeah, I got a thing right here. I got at least. I don't have necessarily McLaren's because they had brought it to the race before. I have an article on Imola's, and I have RB20s got a new floor. The car got also fitted with a new front wing, a rear corner, and a nose. And then we have Ferrari. They have new side pods. That basically a brand new car for Ferrari. They got a brand new diffuser, and then changes to the rear suspension, floor, and front rear wing caps. Basically, the whole thing. And then we have
the whole aero package.
Mercedes on the W15 has a new floor body, a new floor fence, a beam wing, rear and front corners. And this is only the first part of their package. So this is one, and I think their first part this is their second. The first part was in Miami, and now this is the second, and I think there's one more for them. Aston Martin, the AM24, has almost everything from a new front wing to nose, floor, diffusers, engine cover, rear suspension, and rear corner. Yeah, and that's the ones that I have. I think those are the main big upgrades for most of the teams.
Yeah. Aston Martin had 9.
Alpine had a little one. Williams had a new floor.
Yeah, Williams had a new floor.
Essentially similar aero, just lighter to try to save weight. And then Sauber had like little small things and like track specific stuff. Haas had like a rear stay, so try to get the rear end to be a little more active. And then the only people that didn't bring any upgrades was VCarb. Didn't bring
Interesting
any
for
upgrades
how
this weekend.
they were good. For someone who didn't bring any upgrades, they were competitive.
Competitive they were.
And competitive they were.
Yeah, Aston Martin had 9 upgrades. Front wing, nose to floor. No,
They had none.
They had 9
in German.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Stroll did pretty good this weekend. So I mean, did those upgrades help? And Alonso's crash just kind of set him off on a bad foot.
Yeah, but I guess when you put upgrades in it, and
I'd be curious to see how much of those were destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then maybe they had to.
Yeah.
Did they have to roll him back?
Like, was he running the previous spec of car? Because
Yeah.
The F1 commentators made a joke of like, I wonder if a Spaniard and a Canadian are going to argue over who gets the new parts. because this,
I mean,
I bet a Spaniard's gonna win.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Probably. I mean, it doesn't seem like it though, because Alonso's the one that was in the pit, started from the pit, and Stroll was not affected at all.
yeah.
I think.
I mean, but next week we have Monaco. So Monaco is a totally different beast when it comes to really. How do you even look at upgrades at Monaco? You can't.
I think.
It's
I think before we get into Monaco, we're skipping over one of the most trending topics of this weekend, and that is Max the Degenerate racing 2 races this weekend and winning the Nürburgring
God.
24-hour iRace event.
Yeah, winning 2 Grand Prix.
Yeah,
Is
one wasn't
insane.
enough.
And
Yeah,
He got his
do
own.
we have how
he
many
got a
people were in that race with him?
three
It
others.
was like an endurance race.
They were team Red
So
Line.
it's a.
3 other dudes.
And then how many people competed with him?
Union against him. I know they were streaming it on Twitch.
Yeah. He had a brand new
Sim
custom
rigged it.
sim racing rig that was constructed and delivered to like a trailer at Imola, that like they had to like update it and like reconfigure it so it could fit small enough to fit into and like be simple enough to like configure so that he could set it up and do it.
Wow.
And it was like a brand new SimiCube base, the new SimiCube like active pedals, which are like these motorized pedals that are super sick. And one of his teammates said like, yeah, Max is really good, so we weren't worried. Like he within 2 laps on the new rig, he like already was on pace and like just it's like totally new rig, totally new setup, totally new everything. And then he's just like, yeah, it took him like 2 laps, and then he was just on pace, and then he just drove the shit out of it. Like
That's insane.
he was like up late and then went to bed and woke up and then
Race some more.
won the fucking Imola Grand
What a
Prix.
monster.
It's like, what the fuck?
That's insane.
Dude, it's so crazy.
He is a beast. I mean, he is basically a robot, but as much hate as he gets, and the weird kind of dynamic they pitched on him for him on Drive to Survive, he's so fucking cool because he's just a nerd. He's just a racing nerd. He loves it, and I, more and more love him because he is like, he might be autistic, and he might be a little like,
So, today,
like,
though, he was struggling, or on Saturday and Friday he was struggling, and I think we've seen a nicer Max over the last 2 years because he's been winning, dominating, and he's been kinder. And the last 2 races, when he's had a challenge or something's not been perfect for him, he was a little brat.
oh yeah,
I mean,
the
but
brat
that's
comes back.
fine. I mean, what do you want from him? He's competitive. He wants to win.
Well, his radio call where he was like Lando is 2 seconds on you, and the other one he's like, I know these tires suck, and he's like, I'm just letting you know, Max. He's like, I am too. I'm just letting you know as well.
his like
You know.
like married banter back and forth with him and GP is next level.
GP. It's amazing.
It's just
mine as
information,
well.
Max. It's just information from me.
Mine is
Like-
the same.
Just letting you know that these
Might as well.
tires is shit.
So
I mean, they were
Yeah.
pushing, and
yeah, I mean, yeah, as much as like Max was a little whinier on the radios that they broadcast today too, like holy shit. I mean, Lando is the same exact thing, right? Like they're like, yeah, we could go a little better at 9. He's like, I'm pushing.
oh, he's like,
I'm
why is
doing
everyone
it!"
else
Like,
doing
he was
better than me? He's
freaking
like,
out.
Lando, we're saving our tires. We're doing actually really good at saving our tires right now. And he's like, well, they are doing so much better than me. What's up?
I think
It
they all
was-
get
it
a
was
little. I
wild.
think everyone gets a little bratty on the
Yes.
radios.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I think so too. I think every radio broadcast.
Oscar.
Except
No,
for Oscar.
yeah, Oscar is the
Except for
only one.
Oscar. Oscar.
Wow.
Some just he like got the closest to being a dick. Like, was it yesterday during quali where he was just like, nah, he's not very good, is he, or something?
That
Like,
was
it was totally
impressive.
like non.
Yeah. I think the commentators he came in, he
Yeah.
was like, why would he do that? Like, why would he even? Because it was just like I think it was during quali, right? And he was just coming around, and I think it was one of the Alpines just got his way, and one of the commentators was like, I think that was the close to the angriest we've seen him, and it wasn't angry whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even when he
got him.
won, even when he got
Yeah. he was-
third before the penalty, he was like, P3 mate, terrific job, and he was like, yep, great job guys. Not like, whoa, like not happy. He was just like, yep, awesome, great job
I
guys.
think that's why I like him the most. It's just all chill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chill
it's
lads.
exciting.
I'm just happy to be here.
I'm just glad to be here, you know.
He's not driving that shit box Alpine around.
That's true.
I mean, he has to feel very lucky about his situation. Like, he could have been the rookie on another team to, you know, a driver and just digging a hole, you know, where now he's competing. He's up. He's meeting the expectations of a second driver, while Norris is taking that lead. Oscar could take it at any moment, I think, you know.
But they're also not taking each other out.
I bet he doesn't feel. Yeah. I feel like he probably doesn't feel lucky. He probably feels vindicated because everyone was like so dogging on him for the way he accused him of handling that Alpine exit and all of that shenanigans. And then he rocked up to McLaren and it's just been rock solid. You know, like that's probably gonna feel pretty good to be like, yeah. I had to get the fuck out of that shit show and got into McLaren, and now it's just like delivering.
I mean,
you know?
who are we seeing right now? I know this is moving on to more rumors and speculations, but we saw Bottas in the Williams garage this weekend.
And
Uh,
Albon is
So-
firmed up.
Hospitality, yeah.
He was the only other one.
Albon
to
is
firm
firmed up.
Yeah, he was the only one that's firmed
He's
up.
on a contract.
I think that's concrete wise. I think that's the only thing I've seen. Rumor wise, there was rumors that Max walks away and takes a break.
from Red Bull.
Yeah, and takes a break.
He's got
Again,
he's got at least 2 more
rumors.
seasons.
But can you
Yeah.
imagine Max next year when he does not have Adrian
It's-
Newey on his team?
Yeah, of course.
He won. I don't know. I think that's so. Like, he wants a challenge. He wants to just keep racing. I think he's just going to keep racing.
But does he get bored?
until it's like, oh yeah, he'll get bored, but that's when he does some like Ricky Bobby shit and like
goes-
writes his name in the
he goes to
grass
fucking
at the end of the
NASCAR?
race.
I would bet he rides it out at Red Bull to the rule change, sees how Red Bull does at the start of the rule change. If they're dog shit because they don't
A
have
good
Dewey and
engine.
they don't have like a competitive car, that's the moment where he'll go, do I want to change and go somewhere else, or do I just want to be done? Like, because I could very easily see, like, if all the seats are full at all the top teams, like, he's not going to go to Ferrari, he wouldn't go to Mercedes. It's like, depending on who's at the top of the ranks in 2026, I could see him just saying, you know, I wrote out the Red Bull thing, I got my, by then, probably 5 world championships.
Yeah,
Try something else.
I could see it. And then he goes
Call
to,
it.
he goes to IndyCar.
Like,
He
I-
goes to something
No, he goes
fun.
To, he goes to WEC. He goes to World Endurance probably.
Yeah. He's for sure.
Probably because he likes the supercars more than he likes the.
I mean, I want someone to go for the Triple Crown. So like Max.
It'll be
I
Max.
hope he gets
Max
it. That'd be
is gonna
awesome.
The Indy 500
100%.
people. So I mean, it's the Indy 500. The qualifying was this weekend, and the Fast Six is next weekend now, and the race is next Sunday. And people get added into the Indy 500, not racing the Indy NTT series. So that's actually kind of interesting. More people race Indy than like the current series, whatever.
Actually, my Claudia, my partner's mom, her company is sponsoring a car in the Indy 500, but it's not. I was like looking up the number, and I was like, they're not a normal driver. They weren't in the Indy car last year, so I had to look up the list, and I was like, oh wow, so it just is like an addition, and then you get added to that list. I mean, it's like, all the other races.
Well, that's how Alonso almost got the Triple Crown, and then his Honda engine failed. So
it's
like,
the Indy 500, the 24-hour Le Mans, and Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
And so Alonso has Monaco and 24-hour Le Mans.
And Indy, right?
He raced in it.
No, he raced in it, but he did not win it. Okay.
Yeah, because his. I mean, I want to see. I've been watching a little bit more IndyCar, and that honestly, it's thrilling. It's just as thrilling. It just seems a little bit more. It's so American compared to, like, it feels like just ripping and tearing. Whereas I feel like F1 is so like, it's like dancing. Whereas this is wrestling. Like this is.
I mean, when watching IndyCar and watching Formula E are very similar, just because, or Formula 2, right? I mean, it's all driver centric racing spec series.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but IndyCar has weird tire, like their pit windows. Like it's interesting. It's just different. It's like it's a different experience because like even when it starts getting in, there's just more variables that I'm not used to watching to like see who's still going to be reasonably competitive at the end. Like, but there's more movement through the field, I think, for sure in IndyCar. Like because people do different strategies and whatever. But
is there anyone?
But maybe that's just because I don't understand it. Like, and I watch it, I'm like, who knew that guy was gonna do well? Because I don't know what anything is happening.
Does anyone have the Triple Crown?
Yeah. Graham Hill. Graham Hill is
he's the only one
driver to have completed the Triple Crown.
Yeah, he's the only one. Holy shit!
But like Fernando Alonso literally just needs Indy 500. He's got two.
Him and
two
Bruce
wins
McLaren.
at 24 Hours Le Mans. He's got 2 wins at Monaco. He's got 2 F1 World Championships.
That's what he needs to do next. He needs 2 IndyCar wins. And IndyCar is cool to win because you could just win a race. You could be like 5th, 6th, and then all of a sudden one day you just win a race. That's like IndyCar to me is so wild. It's not like a consistent dominance. There are good drivers, but at least the last 3 I've watched, I was like, oh, that guy won. Whoa. But
I think as far as this one, the last thing we need to talk about is Monaco, and that
Monaco.
Honestly, I mean, it's really going to come down to strategy. Is going to be who qualifies the best, and does Sergio
and that determines the race.
Who crashes to wipe out the rest of quali.
That is an epic history of Monaco.
Damn, do I have Carlos?
Is that Perez?
Yeah, it's always an exciting Saturday and then a boring ass Sunday. Except for last year's, all that rain and everyone was slipping and sliding and all that shenanigans. But then even the folks at the top
does anybody pick up Leclerc?
No,
because did he break?
No, he finished. Yeah, he broke the curse.
Okay,
he finished a race. He didn't win, no. But he finished a race.
Sorry,
I wouldn't.
Sorry, I was still reading the Triple Crown Wikipedia page, and what's interesting is the manufacturers, McLaren, Mercedes, and Ford are the only 3 manufacturers to win the Triple
Yep.
Crown, to have a car in
Yep.
those 3 races.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Sorry. But yeah, Monaco. I don't know. It's the old drivers. Don't count out Bottas in this one.
Yeah.
Absolutely count out Bottas. What are you talking about?
Bottas.
What are you talking about? That car is dog
He's-
shit. And where did he quali last
Bottas.
week?
you
Like,
never count
what are you
Bottas out.
talking
Never
about?
count Bottas out.
That he'll have a good time and
he'll
drink some coffee and get his mullet longer. No, dude, that dude is
Yeah, dude. The
washed.
only thing we know Bottas is gonna do is he's gonna fucking ride the track on his bike before the race day.
Oh yeah.
That's
Let me see
all.
here. Hold on.
Mhm.
But I was saying earlier that if Max
Has
Verstappen
he ever won Monaco?
wins this race, he now will be tied with Lewis Hamilton for Monaco wins. And that's pretty interesting because also Alonso is up there, David Coulthard, Niki Lauda. They all have 2 wins. Sebastian Vettel, but if he wins one more, he's tied with Lewis Hamilton for that. And the most winning one is Senna, of course, at 6.
So
wins
Bottas in his
around Monaco.
4 years at Mercedes, he qualified 3rd, 5th, 2nd, and 3rd.
With Mercedes.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't hear
I don't
first.
hear any Alfa Romeo.
I bet many of those Lewis
Yeah.
Hamilton was number 1.
I don't hear any Alfa Romeo or Kick Sauber.
So the
Yeah.
car was getting pulled.
I mean, if you were gonna say not to count out anyone, I would say don't count out Ricardo. That's someone that I think his car is a challenging car. It's keeping up. He did really great. Natsu, the sprint in Miami. He did really well. We can see this. He's won around this track before. It's a track that he knows he could do.
Yeah,
but
does his
I would put him over Bottas. I'm not saying
it's gonna
you know
on
like
strategy.
Yuki.
Which team has the best
Oh.
strategy?
Yes. Well, I don't think the strategy matters. I mean, it's just who can get the car up to speed and do a good quality lap. I mean, right now Ricardo's quality is kind of dog shit, and he's been decent
Yes.
in race pace. So for me, I would say I'm a little bit. Ricardo has had both won and had some amazing races around Monaco when he was with Red Bull in the best of times, but also like the worst performance he had at McLaren was when they were in that super sweet Gulf livery and he was just getting lapped by Lando and he was like 18th and Lando was like on the podium. So like, I don't know. Ricardo is a real crapshoot.
Yeah.
He looked decent. He looked decent this weekend compared to Yuki in race pace and like in quali because they were right up next to each other. It'd be interesting to see if he can keep that going. Like if he can get that vibe with the car, then yeah, I think he could be right there. But,
Yeah.
like, I think it'll be interesting to see how Leclerc does. Did they learn enough from the upgrades this weekend at Imola to deploy them at Monaco
Tweak 'em.
and like know how to get the setups right? Because he is
that's where I was
crazy
looking.
good qualifier. Max right now he's still undefeated on pole.
Max?
Has someone snaked it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
This,
season?
this was his 8th pole.
Yeah, who's gotten pole in every race so far?
Yeah.
You know who's I think a really
Yeah,
clutch
so
pickup
He's probably
for
gonna win.
tomorrow is Sergio, or for next week is Sergio. I think that he's won this race before, and he's a solid, like street track driver. I think he would be a good pickup for this race if we were gonna pick anyone that would hold up and maybe possibly win or get more possible points. I think it could be Sergio for Monaco this year.
Yeah, because he's cheap this week. 'cause
Exactly.
He did terrible this week, and he's a pretty good street driver. It'd be interesting. I mean, the storyline about Checo that I think is interesting is like at the beginning of last season, it was like a couple races in, it was like, oh, is this going to be a Max v Checo World Championship? And then he fell off a cliff. It's like, did we see this weekend with his performance at Imola was a dip, just a momentary didn't have a good weekend, or is this the beginning of the story of last year, which is this is the beginning of the downfall? You know,
Yeah,
where he
he
just
definitely.
falls off.
Yeah,
and
I
can't
think
develop his
that this
car.
week though was a little bit of
'Cause-
upgrades and mixing around because he kind of had his own strategy he was going for. I think he was figuring the car out a little bit more. I don't know clearly if they both got every part of each upgrade, and maybe he was just struggling with what he got. But it seemed as if he had some plan this weekend not to push as hard. But
I can't believe that. I think he just is not comfortable with the car. It'd be interesting to see. It's the first round of upgrades on the Red Bull. They upgraded the car earlier last season, and the car went away from him.
they
earlier.
could have been that
So,
again.
like, is it that when they upgrade the car falls away from him, and then now we're gonna see Checo start to fall off as the direction and the upgrades are like going? Like Max is immediately comfortable with them.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
I mean, the fall off of him is
Risky pick?
is only an opportunity for other drivers. I mean, his head is still like unknown where he's gonna go. So
last weekend this weekend he got out
Yeah.
got out qualified by Daniel Ricciardo.
exactly.
Get him
I
out
mean-
of the car.
I mean, what that was. We were watching qualifying, and he said, "Get him out of the car immediately. Put Ricardo in the car." We're like, Yuki is outperforming Ricardo. Why wouldn't they put Yuki there first?
Yuki in the car, yeah. I mean, honestly, the more and more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, if Daniel can get it together, be like, oh, full down under team at Ricard next year of Liam and Danny Rick could be interesting, and then put Yuki in Checo's spot. Like, that could be
It
interesting.
would be.
Like,
Dream big.
I don't think that would have been my prediction or an angle that I would think would be interesting.
So
at
Monaco
the beginning of the
stats.
season.
First of all,
Ooh, let's hear
most-
him.
so the most wins. First place goes to Senna with 6. Graham Hill has 5. Michael Schumacher has 5. Alain Prost has 4. S. Moss, I don't know who this is. I think this is an old driver. 3. Jackie Stewart has 3. Nico Rosberg 3. Hamilton 3. Fangio 2 for McLaren. Niki Lauda 2 goes down and down and down. But Vettel, Verstappen, Weber, Alonso, Coulthard, Bruce McLaren. No, Bruce McLaren has 1. Jack Brabham has 1. Anyway, only 36 winners at Monaco over the years.
That's
McLaren,
small. That's
McLaren has the
actually-
most constructor wins with 15. Ferrari 9. Lotus 7. Red Bull 7. Mercedes 5. By position, 31 wins from first place at 44.9%. Second place was 16 wins at 23%. Third place 12 wins, 17%. And 4's fifth, third, first, 1.
There is an interesting thing about that stat though, because if there's been a lot of retirements from pole. So I forget how you look it up, but you could do a lookup like within the modern, like since the V10 era, since reliability has grown, like
Almost.
the pole conversion rate is it's like 70, it's 80%. It's like insane. Like unless someone DNFs out of pole, they don't they almost always win. So it's like there's no overtaking, especially in the boats that the cars are now. So I think Saturday is the day to watch, and Sunday will be interesting.
Maybe it'll rain.
Maybe it'll rain, but I think it'll be a very processional, straightforward race, just like this weekend's was. Which is, that's what happens with these classic tracks, where they're interesting to qualify. They're hard for the drivers to drive on. They're punishing when you go off. Like Monaco, even more so than Imola. There's no gravel traps. There's just walls.
Yeah.
But then on Sunday, you just kind of see the car start, and then they finish, and then
There's lots of
There's a lot of
champagne and
champagne.
fun.
There's some big
views of
boats.
And
boats.
honestly, that track is so interesting to me because it's such a weird little area that they chose on the edge of the water. It's so pristine. It's the most famous track, and yet it's like if you look at Monaco, you're like, why would they pick that place? out of everywhere in the world.
I mean,
Yeah,
when the
it's
cars
true.
were small, it was a good racetrack.
Lightning McQueen was there.
But
Lightning McQueen.
it's fun to drive on F1 on the sim rig, but it's from a watching perspective. It's
Yeah,
not
but honestly, after last year,
But anyways.
when F1 took over the rights to actually be the broadcast company that does it, the coverage has been so much better. I remember my first season watching, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was so different because you would get some weird angles. There's not even a car running through, or it's angles of cars that you're not wanting to watch. They're not, no action is happening. But with F1 handling it, it's been so, it was like such a better stream last year for the first time. It was awesome. So I am looking forward to it. So we will be back next week for the Monaco Grand Prix, and that was the Grid Culture Podcast. We'll see you next time.